Hey people, good morning. Welcome to Devotions. Just want to give a quick shout out, if it's okay, to a group of young people from Treverton High School in Moy River in South Africa who came. There were 22 of them. They came on a mission trip here for about a week, spent a week just working in Genesis and in the church. And I got to tell you people, my faith in the next generation rose to an all-time high as we got to spend time with these remarkable people, so beautifully led by two really great leaders. And I just want to shout out to them to say, guys, thanks for being here. It was awesome having you. We're talking about servant leadership. We're basing our teaching on that verse in Mark chapter 10, verse 44, where Jesus wants to settle a dispute with two of his disciples. And he says this, he says, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. It's a great basis for the philosophy or the teaching of servant leadership. I want to continue today by saying, the two words servant and leadership don't sound synonymous, do they, in today's world? We sometimes think that this must be some kind of a paradox to be a servant and a leader. Well, indeed, I think that's probably a good suggestion, because a paradox is two opposite truths that if you combine them together, you make a good point. And so servant leadership may sound like a pie in the sky kind of a thing, but people, I reckon it's incredibly real. Let me share with you today just a characteristic of servant leadership. We obviously look at Jesus as being a model of servant leadership, but he's not the only one. Let me share a characteristic. I believe that servant leaders understand very simply the value of a human being. You know how we tend to, on a human scale, we tend to want to use people. If somebody is useful to me, if somebody can come alongside me and make me better, if somebody can join my team and make my team stronger, then I seem to put a higher value on those people than people who come into my life who maybe can't add the same sense of value to the vision or the purpose for which I am pushing forward for. And yet Jesus understood the incredible value of just a human being simply because they were a human being. He valued lepers. They could offer nothing to him. He valued sinners. They could offer even less to him. He valued just everybody in the world was of value to Jesus. Whether they could offer anything toward his mission or not, they found themselves being valued by this great and the greatest of servant leadership. I remember this being illustrated to me some time back. After church one day, one of our elders called me and introduced me to a family. And they said, hey, Trevor, this family have just moved down from Joburg, and this lady, she was a Sunday school teacher, and this guy, he was a leader in the church. He was one of the deacons or one of the elders, and these kids were all great leaders in that youth group. And man, they've come to our church for the first time. And I looked at this family, and you know what I said to them? And I regret it so much. I looked at this family and smiled and said, man, we could really use you around here. And the man of the house looked at me with deep sadness, and he said, you know what? I'd far rather you just loved us. Nobody wants to be used, but everybody wants to be loved. And I regret that. And if this guy ever watches this devotion and recognizing it's him I'm talking about, please forgive me for the stupid thing that I said that day. We need to love people. We don't want to just use them to achieve our end or our goals. People don't want to be used. People want to be loved. So the first characteristic of a servant leader is they have this unbelievably high value of human beings. They can be from a different class. They can be from a different culture. They can be of a different color. They can be totally different in many ways, but something in a servant leader comes across to say, man, I really love you. Now how can I serve you and make you great? Because I value you. Now, a church should be famous for doing this, should it not? If there's one thing the church should be doing is loving people. Whether they're of any use to us or fulfill our goal doesn't really matter. We need to be known as people who love and value people above all else. So it's not just for leaders, it's for everyone. Let's make sure that everybody we come across, everybody who comes across our path, feels at the end of that conversation they're incredibly loved, they're incredibly valued, even if they serve no purpose to our vision or our purpose for the church at all. Servant leadership begins with a heartfelt cry to say, man, I love you, I value you, and what can I do to make you the greatest that you can be? That's the foundation and a great characteristic of servant leadership. I'll give you another one tomorrow. Bye.